supply chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. I'm your host today, Audrey Ross. I'm here in Toronto. I'm the Import and Export Compliance Manager at Orchard Custom Beauty. Some of you have seen me on the show before, so it shouldn't be too big of a surprise. I'm excited to be here with Daniel Lewis, who's going to join us today in a few moments. But first, I'm going to let you know that we're here with Emerge, who's proud to partner with Thoughts and Coffee to elevate our combined focus on empowering and growing meaningful relationships in the freight industry. The first and only freight-specific RFP platform, Emerge is reinventing freight procurement by offering solutions that enhance the spot and contract procurement process, enabling shippers to make the most strategic decisions possible, saving invaluable time and enhancing productivity. To learn more, head to emergemarket.com/thoughtsandcoffee. All right, so we've got a lot going on today, a few articles to cover. As usual, it'll be the fastest 30 minutes of your morning. Good morning, Annie and Christina. Thanks for tuning in. So some of the upcoming items I want to highlight at this moment are the podcast. So we've got the episode number 279, which is Design and Manage a Global Supply Chain with Unilog. And as we know, in the last year, for sure, managing your global supply chains has been key. And it's interesting that this podcast jumps into the design aspect of it, where I think, a lot of us have been reactive, and maybe the pandemic and the recent situation has given us a chance to think about, what's working and what we need to change. So this episode sort of goes into a closer look at Unilog's supply chain as a service offering, how it facilitates global fulfillment, and how, how they were founded and how they translate digitization, visibility, real-time supply chain content, for everyone's benefit. So worth checking out episode 279. That's the regular podcast. And then I'll highlight one of, close to my heart is, of course, Blended. I'm repping my shirt today. So there's a new episode of Blended out on tokenism, the wrong route to diversity. So this is episode 22 of Blended, which I can't believe we're at episode 22 already. But here we are, and this talks with a few people who I know quite well. So that's always exciting when you see your friends and sort of your closest community members, kind of getting into these discussions. So it talks about, which is a tricky issue, tokenism, and how, Sarah gets into how the term was coined in the late 70s, but we're hearing more and more about it now, sort of as we're in this environment of diversity and inclusion and this focus, which we want to see more of. But of course, sometimes, we want to make sure that it's authentic and genuine, and not sort of washed in. So definitely tune into this one, because you want to hear from Jennifer, who's the founder and executive director at Trans New York. Just a wonderful person who I was lucky enough to meet earlier this spring. A good friend, Claricia, who's at Global Compass Consulting, and of course, Brienne, who's part of the Let's Talk Supply Chain team. Anyways, another great conversation around Blended. And if you haven't seen, head over to our Blended pledge. I made sort of a little micro commitment to get us to about 500 followers by mid-September. So that's sort of part of my personal challenge and involved with the pledge. It's a micro grant program to offer sort of speaker grants to underrepresented people. And I mean, I'm specifically involved because when I was sort of getting asked to do speaking engagements, they weren't necessarily paid. And, how, especially when I was sort of in my 20s and getting started out, how was I going to cover the costs for me to fly to Las Vegas or to New York or to Vancouver to be able to meet these opportunities while I was sort of just growing as a young professional. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. And we appreciate any of your support for our blended pledge, because I know Sarah and I are both very proud of it. So with that, I think we will bring up our friend Daniel Lewis to the stage.
Hello.
Hi, Daniel. How are you?
I'm good. Audrey, how are you?
I'm good. Tell us where you're joining us from, a little bit about yourself and what you're excited about.
Absolutely. So hello to everybody out there. I'm Daniel Lewis, and I'm live from Innisville, Ontario. So close to Toronto, about a 45-minute drive. And I am the founder of Daniel's Chai Bar, which is and I brought my cup, my tea company, and we focus on selling chais and teas, and we really specialize in all kinds of different herbal infusions. And then I'm also an international speaker and author, and kind of dip my hands in a lot of different things. But the Chai Bar is probably my baby right now. It's my prime baby for sure.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you so much for joining us today. And so you sort of got into exporting sort of with, tell us a little bit about sort of how you got started, because I remember visiting your location too when you first got started. So tell us a little bit about that entrepreneurial journey.
Absolutely. So it really, it dates back 12 years ago, really, where, I went through a big transition in my life. I used to be a music artist who was heavily involved in music, and a Canadian songwriter. I know how to go from music to tea, right? But, and then after going through a really life-altering situation, nearly tragic actually, I made a huge change. And when it came to the things I consumed, tea became a very, very prevalent part of my diet. That was around the time when tea companies were just on the rise, the David's Teas, Teopias, Tivanas, and such. And I rode that wave. I was like an avid tea drinker, spending way too much money on tea. And it piqued my interest. And I asked myself, I wonder if I could take everything I learned from the music industry and just create this fashionable, fun tea company. And that was the birth of what was then called Tea by Daniel.
Yeah.
And over the next few years, we did many events. We opened up a brick and mortar store, and we were running an online tea company and really starting to get our name out there. We were bringing in teas. This is kind of how I got into my whole import-export journey. We started bringing in teas from South Africa, China, Japan, Kenya, and things were going really well. And right when we were ready to expand into new markets like the UK, and expand more into the US, that's when COVID hit, many years in, and we had to kind of stop, pivot, reimagine. And in December of 2021, I launched a new tea concept called Daniel's Chai Bar, which is just my Tea by Daniel concept reimagined with supply chain in mind and just a more ready to take on business post-COVID company. And now we've, since December, opened up 3 store locations and hopefully looking to franchise in the future.
Congratulations. Yeah, it's been interesting to hear how, we sort of were all met with this challenge, and how we've sort of pivoted and just sort of reiterated and gone around it. And it's so great to hear, like, it's such a Canadian success story, because, we're both Canadian, so we'll push that out.
Yes. Absolutely. And I always forget to mention, but this is one of our biggest milestones that I love talking about with the tea company, was in 2017 when we were selected to serve tea to His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales. And it was the biggest tea moment in my life. Yeah. And it really helped to, give us exposure on an international scale, which only made things grow rapidly, and we had to adjust. And that's why we chose the UK as a market to expand into. So,
yeah. Which is, I mean, a challenge. I would look at that and be like, not that place, because they got like, yes, come on. That's the entrepreneur. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I know. We had it was like, there's such a heavy tea nation, and they have a set way, but we had such a good story. We're thinking, let's bring some Canadian flavor and see if we could, make some magic there.
Yeah, and it's funny how, it's sometimes that business gets that, like, you get that little boost from, like, a celebrity interest, or somehow the news picks up a story about you, and all of a sudden it kind of just
something changes,
starts to to evolve. I love it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I'm excited to have you here today. So we kind of went over, we've got our articles that we're going to talk about. It's fastest minute, 30 minutes in supply chain. So we'll bring up the, Sarah does a Thoughts on Coffee post every Sunday. And so this Sunday she was talking about how to keep moving forward when we feel like giving up. And she goes into some of her thoughts around, being honest with yourself around our fears, being able, how she's had a number of times in her own life where she felt the need to quit. Right. Yeah. And sometimes that's, that's fair. It's like, we need to quit. It's like, it's not working, things aren't adjusting. And then sometimes it's just sort of taking that moment, taking that time to sort of address what's happening. And if there's something that, many changes that you can make. So she shared this graphic. I think we can see it on the screen, sort of why people give up. And it goes through, expecting fast results, which might be me, getting stuck in the past, not so much me anymore, resisting change just because, it can be scary. The fear of failure is a greater fear than the desire for success. So I love this graphic because it really does give a lot of, and I'm like, am I all of them? No. Like
I know. And sometimes or this one, it's interesting to look at. Yeah, it's really, really interesting.
Yeah. What do you think? Is there a time where you've sort of given up, or is there a time where you've sort of had to, I guess, reassess what was going on and how to move forward?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, like you said, this graphic really highlights some of the ways, especially as an entrepreneur, you're running a business, you go through these mood swings. Sometimes in a day, I'm like 3 or 4 of those colors right there, right? It's just different things being thrown at you. But 2 things that have really helped me in those times when I either had to, give up, move on, pivot, or felt that way. Number 1 is being a purpose-driven person. I always find that when I have a strong purpose, it grounds me in those times where I feel like giving up. And so, with my own business, I always resort back to my why. Why am I selling tea? Why am I in this industry? Why aren't I just at another job down the road? And once I ask myself those questions, the purpose of why I'm doing it becomes so much bigger than me. And then all of a sudden I get that kind of encouragement, like, okay, then even for that sake, I got to keep going, or try harder, or try different, or, learn more, talk to someone. So being purpose-driven and knowing why is really, really crucial for me. And then number 2, which my dad and my parents really helped me with this, is just getting a fresh perspective on setbacks. When you're early, like you said, like, I like to see quick results. I like to move really quickly. I want to see it. Let's do it. Oh, it didn't work. But setbacks, what my dad said, and he called it slingshot theory, and he actually made a slingshot, was, when you go through, if you don't go through any setbacks and everything's just smooth in life, and he only pulled it back a little bit because you didn't really go through anything. What happens when you go to take the next step in life, and, the stone just fell right at his feet? But what if you do go through setbacks where, the business deal's not going through, your products are stuck on a harbor somewhere for 9 months when it was supposed to be 1 month? Setback, the deal doesn't go through. And he kept pulling it back for all these setbacks. And then he said, when you go to take the next step forward, and that thing went flying. And he said, our setbacks actually propel us farther ahead. And I was like, that's how I view setbacks when I feel like giving up. And it helps. It just gives me a wholesome thought.
That is some resonant dad wisdom. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It's sort of like it's the visual, and you're like, yes.
go. It's like, yeah, it's really
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah. It's true. Like the challenges that we have, that builds up. It builds up
Absolutely.
our resilience. It builds up our strategic thinking. I
Absolutely.
love that. That was
Mhm.
great. We've got a lot of comments, where people have kind of dropped in, some of the ones that they struggle with. Like our friend DC is like, beware of overworking,
Mhm.
which I also might have
Yeah,
problems
I'm
with.
telling you, guilty.
And then we have a couple, it's difficult to overcome negative thinking. It can be powerful and consuming, but if I can step away from the thought, it gives my brain enough time and space. That's from Matthew York. So some great comments in there for everyone to kind of have a look
I
at.
love that, actually. Disconnecting from the entire thing, so
Yeah.
important.
I sometimes get like, I'll just go more, that
Yeah,
sort of, I'm like, I'll just lean into it more, just more.
yeah,
And then you're like, no, let's step back. Let's sit
exactly.
down, have a
Mhm.
tea, think about this, and then kind of regroup on it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. All
Beautiful.
right. Well, let's dive into a couple of our articles. We'll start with, what do you want to start with? Let's start with,
They were so interesting too.
I know. Let's start with the revamping fashion sourcing,
Yes.
which is it's from McKinsey and Company. So it's a report that they published just in the fall of last year. And so I know, let's talk supply chain. I know Sarah's been talking a lot about sustainability goals. And I
Mhm.
think we're all, as we kind of start to make our way out of our pivoting and our challenges, this is sort of the next sort of step on all of our kind of journeys here.
Mhm.
But the sort of report goes into supply chain disruptions have made fast and flexible sourcing a top priority. And they did a survey of sort of sourcing executives, and what this is going to look like. So the storm of challenges, right? The demand volatility, because
Mhm.
it's like now people aren't at home wearing sweatpants, they're out and about. What does that mean?
Right.
The logistics jams that we've had, the rising costs, for a variety of reasons. And so they go into sort of this survey drawing on some of they illuminate some of the supply chain blocks and go into the costs. And then this sort of speed and flexibility of transformation. So
Mhm.
what adjustments are they going to be making?
Mhm.
What did you think about sort of this report and some of the data that's in here?
I thought, first off, such a relevant topic to now. I don't think there's anybody in business, in any facet of business, that's not dealing with, these issues or these realities in some kind of way. What I thought really interesting about this was that as demand, especially from online, increases, because we're just like, oh my goodness, A, it's convenient, B, we're at home, C, for all that lack of spending over these past 2 years, we're ready to spend, we're ready to buy, we're ready to, use our dollars. Because the infrastructure and supply chain is not really fixed yet,
Yeah.
it is just clogging up the drain, which is making it really, really difficult. And I thought that was really, it's not that we're not out the gate yet, even though the spending might be there. And so I saw that as just like a really bottleneck thing that it's interesting to look into. That, how long is it going to take to flatten out where, supply and demand has that tunnel of flow, kind of the way it felt before. And because I experienced that myself, where I was ready to buy, I was ready to try new things, and then I had things waiting on a harbor. So it was a true story, for months, right? And it's like, how do we get around this? And I think this article went into a few ways that people are trying to, bringing things back onto shore is the way to partner up
Yeah.
with companies to, or limit your product offerings. So it's just really interesting on how it was breaking down some of these things. For me personally, I think limiting product offering and just focusing on a few high-end things is a great way to go about it right now.
Yeah, they talked about that one, simplifying the assortment, right? Instead of having, multiple SKUs,
Yeah.
that you're trying to manage. It's like, yeah, tightening up that focus. So it's like, really is the things you do well. Like, stop trying to like throw spaghetti at the wall, but like really
Yeah.
understand what it is you do, what you're great at, and then be able to actually offer that to your customers in a timely way with some customer service.
Yeah.
Because people really are noticing when, especially right now, which companies are leading on the customer service, like what their experience is with, you see people on the hold with airlines for 3 hours. And then you look at one who's like, does a callback program, right? Where you can initiate like, oh, call me back tomorrow at whatever time, so companies that are, we always, you always talk about this. Everybody says it, customer service, but it's like, it's the ones who actually do it.
Like, what are you actually, and it's funny. And I think who is championing this, and I just saw it actually yesterday in fashion, is Canada Goose. And what they did is they built this store in Sherway Gardens, in Etobicoke. And basically what they did, and it's so subtle, but it's so smart, is because of their supply chain, I'm guessing, the products in store are so limited. Like I'm talking boutique, where there's like a couple items. But now when you walk into this store, it is like, first you walk into through this tunnel, and the floor is digital, and it changes according to the season. So it might be like leaves and fall leaves. You walk through that, and there's similar things up above you. Then you walk into this big wide room where it's a 360 screen, and so you're in, say, a summer right now environment, and then you see like 2 jackets, and then you walk over and there's an interactive jacket where you press the button and it tells you about the jacket. You could put it on and walk into this freezer room to see how the jacket would perform. So my point is that they don't have a lot of products in their store, but the experience, they're enhancing that, and even measuring your foot to see what kind of shoe you would need. All of these things are buying time and still enhancing, I think, the customer experience. So it reminds me of this article here.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And they always, it's this combination mix of like this, the assortment, then the sort of the near shoring, sure shoring, friend shoring, as some of us heard last week. And this partnership too. Sarah and I have talked a lot about the partnerships that are coming, these sort of unexpected, we used to be very competitive and closed off on what we were doing, and everybody was like so competitive that it was like, I'm just doing this and I'm going to manage it all myself. And now, I think we started to see these transitions to like, oh, we can help you with this piece, and actually it levels it up for both of us. Absolutely. And we both either access different customers, or we support each other in giving our customers the best. So I like too that they sort of mentioned, this sort of partnerships and collaboration piece.
It's a smart way to do business. And these are some of the things where I say there was definitely some drawbacks to COVID, but it also did expose some weak points or areas of business that we could improve on. And collaboration is one of them. So absolutely.
Nice. Let's go on to let's stay in the same vein. We'll look at this article from The Hustle called Inventory Planning in a Post-COVID World. So this comes in from Caitlin McLeod at The Hustle, which is, I know Sarah loves it. It's got a lot of great articles, and I like them because it's like they're a quick read. So you can kind of get the gist of it, and then, so this one is looking at inventory planning, which is, sort of relating to our last article. What we need to keep moving. And it really goes into sort of the specifics of inventory planning. So if you're not familiar with it, it's a great, just sort of great 101 on inventory here. But it looks at a couple of the options, and I think, and it gives a couple of case studies. And I think the key too is that there's this one note in here about buy JIT, or just in time. And the kind of person interviewed says, like, the biggest impact of COVID on inventory management has been a fundamental shift from just in time to just in case planning. And whether we sort of agree with that is going to be the trend moving forward. What do you think about, designing your own supply chain? I feel like people had just sort of copied just in time, which was like a great Toyota model, but maybe didn't work for, what I do in cosmetics and beauty, or what you're doing in tea, or what other people are doing in, sustainable fashion. So what do you think?
Absolutely. I loved this article, first off, because again, I'm dealing with this, and I saw some insights, I saw some ideas that really resonate with me. I think Absolutely. There's so much benefit to customizing your own supply chain to work with your business model. And for my tea company, a month or two ago, we tested out a different model, and it was, let's be super transparent and open with the current state of supply chain and promote products that we don't have and let, the demand bring the product. So we were letting people know, we are showing you these teas, we can get them, right?
Yeah.
It will take a little bit longer, but it will be so worth the wait. Here they are up on the site, and we're going to order them based on, your orders and your demand. And we usually don't do that. We have inventory of teas that we believe will sell and things like that. But this was such a different way for us to do it. And we did this sale, and orders were coming in and orders coming in. And we had a cutoff point. And at that cutoff point now, we took those orders, we placed the orders and had that lead time now. It was a longer than normal wait time. But from a cost perspective, it really, really worked. And it made me question, like, why do we spend so much in inventory when you can do business this way? Right now, you really have to, if you're going to do that, you got to up your customer service game. When people are saying ETA, when is it coming, how long, and stuff like that. So you have to be prepared for that. It's a trade-off, but it was very interesting to test that out. And I think every business should test out different ways during these times.
Yeah, that's one that I love, and I've seen a couple of companies do it in clothing, where they do this pre-order so that they know how much fabric, and so that they're not having a ton of wastage. And I think when you communicate to the customer what your story is, why you're doing it, why it's great for them, but the trade-off is, they have to wait a month, 2 months, 3 months. With some parameters of, like, if you're going over that, you might get in a bit of trouble. But you can manage that. Like, if you can say, this will be like 4 months, but when you get it, you're going to love it because and you've contributed to these offsets of, we were able to, by doing it this way, we were able to be more sustainable. We were able to use our resources better. So I love that.
Yeah, definitely. But it's a communication game for sure.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Because people do, if you tell them it's going to be a certain time, they get fixed on that. Even me, I'm like, I don't care, whatever, it'll come. And then I'm kind of like, where's my package?
Yeah. Same. I'm the same way. Amazon Prime, I'm
so right there, like, whatever, it'll come. Like, when it hits, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, they told me tomorrow. It's it's yesterday. What? So.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's jump into our last one. Of course, so fast, this 30 minutes. But it's about recyclable shoes. So they just launched, we're sticking with sort of our sort of sustainability idea this week. So it's a Swiss running startup launched the first truly circular sales model in clothing. So it's around a subscription. So you pay a subscription per month for an endless supply of running shoes. Okay, this is pretty affordable. When the shoes get beat up, the customers can return them, and they'll send them a new pair. They then ship the return shoes to a recycling plant where they're cleaned, they're ground and melted into plastic pellets and sent to factories back for assembly. So it has, we'll go into the challenges, but what do you think? Like, getting into this circular model now?
Love it. They hit 3 big things for me, and I know time is running, but they hit subscription, which is super big right now. They hit sustainability, which is another very important thing, and selection. It offers all of those things, and I think that is just so brilliant. The only thing is, there is a big risk to them. If people aren't sending the shoes back, right? Then that is their materials. They can't continue making shoes if they're not getting shoes back. And so if they can figure that out, I think that circular model is just brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant.
Definitely something for us to look into so that we can sort of get inspired on our, making sure our products aren't just, that linear and drop, right? That it's like, how are we rethinking the length of our business cycle or the length of our product life.
Right. And the journey, like I'm thinking, should people send back their tea after they drank it? But that's probably
Right?
not going to work. But
I mean, with yours, it's like leads to compost. It's biodegradable. Like it can lead to, like community gardens. I don't know, something good. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me today, Daniel. It's so fun and so great to see you again. It's been like, I don't know, it was like 4 years ago when I first met you. So it's exciting to sort of be back in person and love to see sort of the pivot and the new business model. I'll have to check out your book because I didn't realize you'd kind of written that. So that's exciting. So everyone needs to, if you're not already, check out Daniel. Head into that tea environment, reduce that coffee, even though it's lots in coffee, cut it down a little bit, switch to tea.
Partnerships, collabs, right?
Exactly.
Nice.
Thanks everyone for joining us and tuning in, and we'll see you next week.